Hello and welcome to City Corner, an ongoing program where we talk with City Council and staff about what's going on in our community. I'm Hollie Logan, Richland's Communications and Marketing Manager, and joining us today is Richland's newly appointed Mayor Bob Thompson. Welcome, Mayor Thompson.
Welcome, Hollie. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. So you've been on City Council since 1994, and you served 2 terms as mayor from 2000 to 2004. So having recently been reappointed, how have the dynamics changed within City Council in the past 20 plus years?
I think that a lot of times back in the old days, City Council was driven a lot more by egos of individuals who were on. And a lot of people, I think back in those days, may have taken City Council as a way of fulfilling inner need for themselves as opposed to maybe doing what was best for the community. Some people may have looked at City Council as a stepping stone to go somewhere else. I think the biggest change in dynamics, I think the individuals who have been on the council for the last, well, again, I've been here a long time, the last 14, 15 years, have solely tried to do what's best for the citizens of Richland. And that has been an inspiring change.
Sure.
In a way, I like to think that I had a bit of a role in that because I would always push back when things didn't make sense. You can always, in public life, determine pretty quickly on whether somebody has agenda, but is the agenda for the citizens or is the agenda personally? And I think the citizens, once that becomes apparent, and there's ways to make it apparent, especially because we're televised live, you can get a better cross-section of your population who want to be on City Council. And I will say that the City Council's members that we have now are very, very diverse in background. They represent different interests in the city. But I think the one crucial component of all that, I think everybody on our current council and the last several councils has been in it for the right reason.
Sure.
Not self-aggrandizement, but trying to do the right thing from the citizens. We don't always make everybody happy here in the city, but you can't because you got competing interests. And ultimately, city governments have to pay for the things their citizens want. And that comes out of other people's pockets. And that's the citizens' pockets. There is no free lunch out there. And so it's that balancing act that city councils get in. And I think Richland is really, first off, it's a testament to the type of people that live in Richland, that you get good, solid citizens, no matter how diverse their backgrounds. But they bring to it an inspiration to do the right thing.
Right, and a passion.
And I'll tell you, I think people who look at getting on City Council sometimes might have a single issue that they thought about. But as soon as they become a council member, you have to look at the bigger picture. And I think that's a value in and of itself. And I think our current council situation really has the ability to take a broad-based approach to doing things. Because we get approached all the time on particular projects or ideas. But we have to look at what the future of the city is going to be. How are we going to pay for that future? Is it truly in the interest of the vast majority of the citizens? It is those questions that council deal with on a daily basis. And I think we get it right a whole heck of a lot more than we ever get it wrong. And frankly, the beauty of the city council system of government, if you get it wrong, the citizens every 2 years have a chance to make a complete leadership change, right?
Sure.
And so it's kind of a beautiful system in that way.
That's right, I agree. Well, good. What would you say are some of your priorities as well as some of the council's priorities for the city of Richland in the coming year?
Okay. That's a pretty broad-based question.
It is broad.
So I have some personal interests, and my personal interests are driven a little bit by my background. As part of being a city council member, I got involved with the Energy Community Alliance, and that's a group of other nuclear cities, for lack of a better way of saying that, or defense site-based stuff. And I've been doing that for 21 years, and taking a look at that aspect. And then I got appointed by the president to something called the Environmental Management Advisory Board, and that helps the Environmental Management Secretary help direct policy in regards to cleanup dollars. And so I'm pretty well versed in nuclear issues, and I look at our community, Richland in particular, though when Hanford got a cold on funding issues, the entire Tri-Cities disposable dollar could fall. I look at our mission as being successful on cleanup. What's our next mission? Are we going to be allowed to have a mission? That's going to have to take changing some minds, maybe on the west side of the state. But you got to start having that dialogue, and I think that there are myself and Tridec and others, and I think Sharon Brown, our senator for our area in the Washington legislature, have made some real inroads in trying to reach out to communicate a potential future vision that actually benefits the entire state, not just our area. Now, that's kind of how I kind of focus what I'm doing. City Council obviously has its own goals, and you can go to our website, look them up, and figure out when we make our decisions, we're looking at, is this driving those goals forward? And again, that was something that the community was involved in, and City Council wasn't creating a vision. And so that's, it helps. I guess it's kind of like life. If you have certain core principles, decisions can be really tough, but if you look at your core ideas, decision making can be pretty easy, because does it go with my core value or doesn't it? And so making decisions like that, if you stick to those core values, make it somewhat simple. In the same way the city does things. You know, we're looking at, again, trying to complete the Dupertale Bridge, get the funding for that. We have some interesting visions in regards to waterfront development in the Tri-Cities, and that's called into question some of the issues at 650 George Washington Way, otherwise known as the hole in the ground. And council struggled with that for a number of years, and there are some prospects to change the hole in the ground. There are some financing issues. Again, people, and I guess I'm old school, because I really was taught that there is no free lunch, and when we make decisions, it's not my pocketbook, and it doesn't come out of the air, it comes out of the citizen's own wallet. And so what we're talking about is disposable dollars that citizens could spend somewhere else. We're taking that away from them. So there better be a good idea on why we're going to do that and be able to sell that to the public. So some of the issues that we're talking about, the idea of a public marketplace, are great ideas, but the real rub sometimes is who has to pay for it. You know, some people used to think the government wasn't very good at getting involved in economic development, i.e. let the private sector do things. I'm one of those kind of old school kind of people. You can create an environment to have local businesses, private interests be successful. But is it truly the job to use public dollars to spend on a private project? And there's a balance there, okay? Not everybody's balance is the same. I doubt if councils, the 7 of us who make those kind of decisions. I think people need to understand it's not Bob Thompson who makes these decisions. There are 7 of us, 7 different points of view, 7 different walks of life who are going to make those kind of decisions. And hopefully we come up with a collectively good decision. But it's no free lunch. We look at our core values, where we're going to be 15 years. And we're not, council isn't designed to be involved in the day in, day out running of the city. Our job is to kind of project the future and create policy to allow the city to be successful. If we can create that environment where private citizens can develop here, be successful, and at the end of the day, the idea is they need to actually get a return on their investment. You know, sometimes governments aren't very good at realizing that there's a cost to the value of money. When I take $1 away from you, you could have invested it somewhere else and made some money. So I think it's important that council look at that. And I think our councils over the years have got better at understanding that disposable income is precious to all of us. Government should not take that right away from the citizens. And that's kind of an old school idea, I think, nowadays. But I tell you what, when you look at the financial crises that are out there, both in the federal government, projecting the state government, cities are pretty well run. Ours is very well run. We win a number of awards just on our financial acumen. And so I'm proud of that ability, but I'm even prouder of council making the right decisions in helping foster that environment for success. And so it's kind of a long, roundabout answer to answering these questions, but I warned you.
No, I appreciate your perspective. In regards to the waterfront visioning project, what do you see that vision entailing? So we've got from Columbia Point, north to the Columbia Playfields. And how do you see that vision kind of bringing all of this area downtown together and really utilizing our waterfront to the full extent?
I think the first thing is no decisions have been made. Council embarked on a mission as part of one of our core goals.
Sure.
Take a look and vision what the city could like in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so we commissioned an individual to come in and take a look. He was instrumental in the Blackcomb Whistler development, and I just got back from there, as a matter of fact, and
It's beautiful.
they did a hell of a job.
They did.
It's one of those kind of deals where you start a vision, and a gentleman goes out and takes a look at what assets you have, look at what your needs might be, and try to fashion something that might work for the city. We've embarked on that step, but it's just an embarkation.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we've started. There are questions that I think are in the public's mind in regards to it's an either-or kind of
Mm-hmm.
situation. We're not close to finishing the dialogue. We don't have all of the questions answered. Hell, we haven't even asked all the questions
Right.
yet, because your questions change as you start getting information.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the collective wisdom of 7 council members, although ultimately we'll make that decision. There is a public visioning process as well. And I think there is a feel sometimes, my observation is that when people have passion, they want to rush to a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, in hindsight, when the passion fades, you're left with maybe having made a mistake because you should have made a decision by logic as opposed to the passion that drove you.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of the tools that we need is to get the public involvement in what they think. So part of the current vision is a concept of a public market. Well, there's a public market. Where does it go? One of the suggestions is at 650 George Washington Way. Another one is down at the north end of the park. And the whole idea behind that is trying to connect the waterfront with the downtown area of Richland. And it's a great vision. We got some obstacles. We saw George Washington Way, the main freeway that goes through town. How do we calm traffic to enable citizens to be able to go from the downtown to the water, to truly make it a cohesive thing? My observation is that there are competing interests on that. But from a city council perspective, who has to look at where the dollars come from, we have to be very, very careful when we, decide to go out and spend $40 million of citizens' money.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got to pay for that. Let's make sure that our project, wherever we decide to put it, actually does what we say. That could be the public visioning aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Is going to kick off in earnest here probably in the next 3 to 6 months. Does that mean anything is going to happen in the next 3 to 6 months? I think it would be naive to think so, one. I think it wouldn't be prudent, too, because we don't have all the questions answered. We haven't had a chance to dialogue with our community. Understand that process in and of itself can be a detriment to other individuals who want to push their own personal agenda forward. And so citizens ought to realize that council's decision-making is based on what's best for all the citizens of Richland, not a select few.
Right.
And some people can say that hinders development. Some people can say you're afraid to make a decision. No, it just makes good common sense, because there's a lot of examples out there, even in the state of Washington, of a rush to judgment where citizens get left holding the bag for something that never worked, never did. And sometimes maybe a hole in the ground is better than having a hole that's sucking money into it. And so that's the cautious thing that councils need to wrestle with. And I think our council has some pretty good people from a business perspective that are on it. And I think that wisdom that comes from their own experience is going to give us the opportunity to take a look at the big picture and realize the decision we make today is binding on citizens down the road. So let's make the right one, and let's take the time, the right amount of time, to make that kind of decision.
Speaking of other projects, you mentioned Dupertel Bridge before. It's moving forward. The city's obtained some of the funding for this. And what do you think the impact will be once this bridge is built?
Well, hopefully it's going to lessen the traffic on George Washington Way, which
Yeah,
may allow us to do the waterfront
There we
vision.
go.
So it's one thing after the other. Right? So it's,
That's brilliant planning.
It's everything's a little bit more linked than people think. People have a tendency to tunnel vision something without understanding what you do here is going to have a tremendous impact over here. You shouldn't be so myopic to think that my project is so cool that I'm going to do that, and it's not going to actually cause ripples over here. And so the Dupertale Bridge, one, will lessen traffic going through the heart of Richland, but it will also open the Queensgate area up, right, to future development, and it will allow South Richland to continue to develop and prosper. It's one of those kind of things that makes so much sense. There are always the naysayers. They're always kind of wondering why. We might have been able to do things maybe a little quicker had gas tax issues and having our side of our representatives support certain projects. We weren't as successful as we might have liked on that. I think we suffered a little bit as a direct consequence of that. But again, communities need to understand that the decisions they make really impact them. Who you choose as your council member, your state representative, and your senator, either on the state level or on a federal level, make a huge difference to the community. The decisions they make should not be taken lightly. And you have to understand we're kind of getting into the business of creating a scorecard to an extent to see we have those scores value. We have our 7 keys. We have our future that we're looking at. How are the people that represent us helping us obtain those goals, right? If they're not, is it that we haven't reached out to them and offered our dialogue to them? Or is it we simply have the wrong people? That's an open question. But it's the dialogue. I mean, there are consequences to your decisions, right? There really are. And I think it becomes very, very important for citizens to keep your head cut in. Richland is better than most because we have a lot of very educated individuals. And so I think we do a better job than a lot. But I got to tell you, we sometimes run afoul of it's the old, same game. Sometimes you might want to go ahead and kick the tires on that old jalopy to see if it still makes sense to be there. And so people should think for themselves. And we're lucky to have an educated population that can do exactly that, should they choose to get involved. And hopefully we can kind of spark that interest here in the next year and a half.
In regards to economic development, we have a lot of property within the city that is available for industrial and out in Horn Rapids area. What do you see as far as some opportunities for economic development for our community to continue to bring in diverse companies and businesses? And
the sky's the limit. We are solely bound on the amount of property we have. As far as laying out the infrastructure, we have done that. We have a rail spur that goes out there that allows people to put the goods that they actually produce, put them on a train and move them out throughout the country. And we just recently got a grant from the Department of Energy handing over a number of acres to ultimately this Benton County, City of Richland, went through TriDec to us. And now that vision, our chance to make what we want to have happen out there, it's very exciting. I guess I hearken back to my understanding of energy businesses. We have plenty of water, we have plenty of sunshine, we have plenty of knowledge and experience in the nuclear industry. We have the ability to create a tremendous energy park out there, and the spill-off businesses that come up there are mind-boggling fast enough. The question is, can we get some of the dead weight who stands in the way of utilizing that land in a way that is beneficial to the community and the state to get a better understanding of how this really benefits them? Some people's minds are closed and you might be just wasting your time talking to them. That's just how it is in life. But there are enough sentient human beings that have the capacity, if you engage them, to have the conversation. I mean, the classic example is the idea of global warming. Our governor has gone out and made some decisions on that. And I don't know whether they really work. I don't know whether global warming is real. If it is, I don't know if man caused it. A lot of questions. But if you really are one of those people who believe that, well, then nuclear power is the way to go. Solar power is the way to go. Water power is the way, because there's no carbon footprint, right? And it's self-defeating for somebody who believes that there's global warming to also not believe in these other power sources. We are perfectly situated to be able to provide that power source to the rest of the state. But we need individuals to start to think a little bit clearer and not step on their own visions. I mean, it's interesting, we call that in my business a certain amount of hypocrisy to say one thing, but yet act in total disregard of what you actually espouse. If you believe that, and I believe this, that power costs, whether you're very rich or very poor, kind of remain about the same. You know, it adversely impacts those of lower socioeconomic need than those of higher. And yet, individuals who express a belief that I want to help my common man, the poor person, continue to allow these energy costs to go through the roof when they don't have to be. And that just frustrates me. It's a lie to tell these people I'm acting on their behalf when they really are not. And that's part of that. Let's go talk to the legislature. Let's go talk to the government. Let's talk to the Department of Energy about what we can do here. Because at the end of the day, we have some real challenges ahead of us. But instead of looking at them as opposites, they actually come together very nicely. And it's pretty obvious, but then you have to kind of question why people do it. You know, some people say what they say for political motivation and stuff. But from a policy perspective, it can be pretty damn dumb. And if that's how they choose to be, well, then people just need to know that that's a dumb policy decision. Although you said this, you're actually acting in complete opposite fashion of what you ought to be doing. Let's have the dialogue. You have to change minds when you face a closed one. You have to help them get a better understanding of why this actually benefits them. And again, it can be a challenge. But, you know, maybe just convince them it was their idea after all. It's amazing how they start to fall in line at that point. But have the dialogue, and you might be able to change people who have the ability to change. Simple as that.
Right. So, as a longtime Richland resident,
Forever.
what would, if somebody was moving to our area, to our city, what would you say are some of the most positive things that we have?
Well, I'll talk from the Tri-Cities. We have great parks, great economic opportunities, great family lifestyle, plenty of water, lots of outdoor activities, lots of sports. People take pride in their communities. Richland, I think, has led the way in years past. We haven't maybe patted ourselves on the back enough in recent years to let people really understand how good the city of Richland first off manages their money, their energy costs, provides them with the parks, provides them with the opportunity for success, and provides them a safe and secure environment. You know, when you turn the water on, it comes on. If you take a look at recent news, Flint, Michigan, where the water comes on, but it'll poison you.
Right.
Who was asleep at the switch there? Well, public officials were, and the people that were supposed to make good decisions either chose not to or played a blind eye to it. I think the citizens can rest pretty assured that it works like this. When I grew up in Richland. Richland was the most egalitarian city there was, meaning that there was no class because Richland had just started. You know, if you're a pipe fitter, a bricklayer, a plumber, or a doctor, everybody made about the same amount of money. And so there was no class. And so when decisions were made, citizens, first off, were never shy about voicing their opinion, and they did. And just because you happen to be, a dentist or an attorney didn't make your ideas any superior to somebody from the street. And that was a great environment to live in. City of Richland's still a lot that way. Citizens are not shy about approaching council and saying, what the heck are you guys doing? And have you considered this? Council's actually pretty open to that. If your idea is better than ours, why would we not take it? And I don't think we have any dogma associated with where the right answer came from. It doesn't have to come from us. And citizens in Richland and people coming here have that opportunity to engage and frankly make a hell of a difference if they choose to. And we are so much more of a vibrant, educated, and winning environment here as a direct result of that. Citizens who come here, they've got a great place to live, great environment, great weather, What else could you ask for? And I'll just talk about security. Crime rates in Richland, been very, very fortunate. And we put a lot of resources in making sure that continues. Citizens need to know that. And we are a shining example, frankly, statewide in a lot of things. And we do it, when you're evaluating something's good or bad. If you look at the level of services citizens are provided with the costs that they're charged, they're getting a heck of a deal. And people need to take a look at that. And there's plenty of comparisons out there. If they don't want to take my word for it, go out and kick the tires, because it's out there. It's available to you.
That's good. You're going to love this question.
We'll see.
What recent accomplishment as mayor, or just as a member of the city council, are you most proud of?
That's a kind of a pretty open-ended question. I think engaging other levels of government in a constructive fashion are things that I take the greatest pride in. The communities, Richland, Kennewick, Pasco, and West Richland, have got much better at solving community-based issues. Okay.
As a region, you're saying?
Yeah,
Yes.
and we engage. We're not as good as we could be, but if we make a decision to collectively approach a vision to our state legislator and get them on board, and then engage our federal legislators, we can make a huge difference here. And I think that we're about halfway down the road. And that's kind of exciting, because I've been fortunate enough to see a little bit of the world. And this area isn't the world, but this area can be a big part of the big world. And getting citizens to understand that and engaging the rest of the world and bringing that into our area, we're doing a tremendous job on doing that. TriDec reaches out on the business front. I know the city's efforts through ECA and mine through EMAM, again, bring a certain amount of attention to this area that has got some things done. And I think we're just, it's kind of like, a butterfly. You're that little caterpillar, and you think it's all going to heck, and all of a sudden you emerge and you have this bright future ahead, and you got all the colors and the spirit. We're just on the cusp. I really believe that. And it's going to be pretty amazing.
That's great. Do you have any closing remarks about the city of Richland and what 2016 has to offer our residents?
It's going to be exciting. I think that council and the city are moving in the right direction, and we have such opportunities. If we have the ability to harness our talents, and I think we do, we just need to maybe have the leadership to do it, to bring people into the collective whole, to push our visions forward. And if our visions aren't the same, understand why they're not, and try to work a joint vision out. We're going to have that dialogue, and the citizens are going to benefit exponentially as a direct result. But I think what's most important, the citizens actually do need to get involved, because it is their ideas that help drive our communities. That vision isn't just 7 people on one council, 7 on another, and 7 on another. It's not. It's a collective whole of the Tri-Cities banding together to push. We're like the 3rd biggest area in the state, but if you look resource-wise and how we're perhaps being successful on the legislative front, we can do a lot better. But we've got to have that one voice, that one mission, that collective vision to be successful. And citizens drive that. And if people stand as obstacles to that vision, express your opinions, accept the fact if you can't win that, then understand that the vision needs to move forward. And finding that vision for the Tri-Cities and being successful implementing it, whether it's from Richland's perspective, Kennewick, Pasco's, or the unified whole, I think the communities are very well situated to have that happen in 16.
Great. Well, Mayor Bob Thompson, thank you so much for being here with us today.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, good to see you. And thank you for joining us for this edition of City Corner. I'm Hollie Logan, and we'll see you next time.